The door isn't locked. Why are you knocking like a stranger? Her voice, sweetened with fake warmth, carried through the thin walls. I was 16. My name is Mariah, and I had never seen my father's face look so still, so unreachable. He stood by the doorway, arms crossed, letting her words drip like poison into the air. She stole money from my purse, Daniel. Your daughter. I blinked at her, clutching my school bag against my chest. The zipper was broken, threads hanging like veins. I whispered. My throat felt cracked from holding in the scream. Dad's eyes didn't move. Pack your things. Those 3 words carried no hesitation, no disbelief of her claim, no pause to look at me as the child he'd once carried on his shoulders at county fairs. Just an execution. The room smelled of detergent and lemon polish, but underneath was something sour. Her perfume, thick and sugary. She leaned against him, hand resting on his chest, like she'd already won. Daniel, she's been nothing but disrespectful. I can't live under the same roof as her lies. You have to choose. Choose. That word turned my bones to ice. I searched his face, hunting for one flicker of the man who used to laugh when I'd burn pancakes, who used to tell me stories about how hard he worked to buy this house. He didn't blink. Out, he said again. My chest caved inward. The weight of betrayal wasn't loud. It was silent, like a vacuum swallowing all the air. I turned, my sneakers scraping against the wooden floor, and climbed the stairs. My room, still warm from the sun spilling across the faded posters on the walls, looked suddenly foreign. I stuffed clothes into a trash bag, grabbed the cracked photo frame of my mother and me before she died, and tucked it deep inside. No one followed me up. No one stopped me. When I came back down, she was smiling. My father didn't look at me. Not once. The door shut behind me with a sound too soft for how final it was. That night, I slept on a park bench, the photo frame pressed to my chest. The streetlights flickered like they, too, were undecided whether to shine for me. I told myself, quietly, one day, silence would speak louder than lies. Have you ever had family cross your boundaries so completely that you stopped recognizing them? Tell me in the comments, I want to know. Because this was the moment my silence began. 15 years passed. I'd learned how to carry silence like a shield, how to build a life without the echo of family dinners or birthdays. I was 31 now, living in a small but carefully built apartment in the city. My own space, my own money, my own rules. The kind of place you buy when you've had to start from nothing. The photo frame of my mother still sat on my nightstand. The glass had cracked years ago in a move, a lightning bolt splitting her smile down the middle. I never replaced it. The crack meant something. It reminded me that love could break, but it could also remain, sharp and unforgettable. It was a Sunday afternoon when the knock came. Sharp, urgent, familiar. I froze in the middle of watering the plants on my balcony. My stomach twisted. For years, I'd imagined what it would sound like if he ever came. What words would come first? I opened the door, and there he was. My father. Older, softer around the eyes, but still holding that same posture. Stiff, like every word was rehearsed. And beside him, her. The stepmother with her practiced smile. Her perfume even stronger than memory. And behind them, a young woman. Late teens, maybe 20. Her daughter. My father's stepdaughter. The one she'd chosen over me. We need to talk, Dad said. His voice carried authority, but not warmth. I didn't move. For a moment, all I could hear was the hum of the refrigerator behind me and the faint buzz of traffic from the street. Her smile grew tighter. Mariah, your apartment, you've done well for yourself. Then the words landed. We think it would be best if you let my daughter stay here, my father said, gesturing toward the girl behind him. She's starting school nearby. She needs a safe place. Family should help family. The audacity was sharp, almost laughable. My chest felt like it was both hollow and burning. 15 years of silence, And this was why he came? Not an apology, not a single acknowledgement of the night he let me disappear into the dark. Just entitlement wrapped in fatherly command. I stepped aside without a word. Their faces lit with the kind of relief you only see when people think they've won. I walked into my kitchen drawer, pulled out an envelope, and placed it gently on the coffee table. "Everything you need," I said softly. Their smiles faltered when they noticed how steady my hands were, how calm my voice sounded. The girl reached for it, curious. My stepmother leaned closer, and as my father picked it up, I watched the flicker in his eyes, the tiniest crack in his certainty. Silence was about to speak. The envelope sat in his hand, weightless but heavy. I could see his thumb brushing the edge, as if sensing there was more inside than paper. My stepmother leaned in, her perfume thickening the air, her voice pitched too sweet. "Well, open it, Daniel." For a moment he hesitated. He had always been quick to judge, quick to believe her. But even now, even after 15 years, I saw it, the flicker of doubt he tried to bury. He slid a finger under the seal and pulled out the documents. The sound of paper unfolding was louder than their breathing. "What is this?" His brow furrowed, scanning the first page. His eyes darted, lips moving silently as he read. Her smile froze. She snatched the second sheet from his hand. The color drained from her face. It's a deed," she whispered. I sat back on the couch, crossing my legs, my expression calm, almost curious. "Correct. The deed to this apartment." Her daughter frowned. "So what? You're giving it to me." I almost laughed, but it came out as a breath instead. "Read the rest." Dad's hand trembled as he flipped through the stapled pages. Clauses, signatures, stamps. Every detail ironclad. It says, his voice faltered. It says, if we request to live here, we are agreeing to repay 15 years of unpaid support, plus damages. His face went slack. "Mariah, what?" I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my knees. 15 years ago, you threw me out with nothing. No clothes but what I carried in a trash bag. No money. No home. I survived on scraps, scholarships, and silence. That silence has a cost. Her voice broke through, shrill, desperate. "This is insane. You can't. This isn't legal." "Oh, it is," I said softly. "I had time. Lawyers. Documentation. You signed away custody. You abandoned me. There's a record of everything. Hospital bills, welfare forms, affidavits from the people who helped me when you wouldn't. Every dollar accounted for." The girl shifted uncomfortably, eyes flicking between us. She looked young, scared. Not cruel, just caught in the orbit of her mother's lies. My father's face, though, was something else. The pride that once defined him was cracking, piece by piece, like ice under too much weight. "You," his voice broke and he swallowed. "You kept track? All these years?" I looked him dead in the eye. "Glass remembers every fracture. You just never cared to see the cracks." The envelope sat between us, silent but screaming. No one moved. And for the first time, my father couldn't find words fast enough to protect her. His silence felt like an echo of my own, returned after 15 years. The room tightened. You could feel it. Walls closing in, air thinning, silence growing heavier than the words they wanted to hurl at me. My father's hand shook as he set the papers back on the coffee table, as though touching them any longer burned his skin. My stepmother was quicker. She lunged for the envelope, clutching it against her chest as though possession could rewrite its meaning. "This is extortion. Daniel, say something. Tell her she can't do this to us." Her voice cracked, desperation leaking through the performance. I stayed seated, calm. My fingers traced the rim of a coffee mug on the table. I hadn't even poured coffee for them. I wasn't planning to. "You're right," I said evenly. "I can't do this to you. You did it to yourselves. 15 years ago." Her daughter shifted closer to the door, glancing at me like she wasn't sure whether to pity or fear me. She had my old eyes, the same kind of wide, uncertain stare I used to have before I learned to turn it into steel. Dad finally found his voice, low and unsteady. "Mariah, why didn't you come to me sooner? If you were struggling, if you—" I laughed once. Sharp, the sound cutting through the room like broken glass. "Come to you? You mean the man who watched me leave with a trash bag and never once checked if I survived the night?" His jaw clenched. The shame landed, but pride kept him upright. "I was misled," he muttered. She told me." "There it is," I interrupted, leaning forward. 15 years later, and you're still hiding behind her words." My stepmother's eyes narrowed, her grip on the papers trembling. "You're cruel, vindictive. Family forgives. Family helps each other. Family protects each other," I corrected, voice low, deliberate. "You protected lies. I protected myself." The clock on the wall ticked. Loud, relentless. Each second a reminder of time lost, time unpaid. Her daughter finally spoke, voice small. "Mom, did you really?" She trailed off, staring at her mother as if seeing her for the first time. My stepmother's face cracked, panic flooding through the cracks. "Don't you dare look at me like that. She's manipulating you, twisting everything." No, my voice cut her off. Calm, certain. "The papers don't lie. Witnesses don't lie. Silence doesn't lie." I slid the cracked photo frame from the shelf beside me and set it on the table beside the envelope. My mother's smile split down the glass, stared up at us. "This is the only family I had after you," I whispered. And for the first time my father looked at that frame, really looked, and I saw the weight of his choices reflected in his silence. Her perfume suddenly smelled sour, the kind of sweetness that made you nauseous like spoiled fruit. She still clutched the envelope to her chest, knuckles white, as if pressing it close could erase its words. Dad stared at the cracked photo frame instead, his eyes caught in a memory he couldn't climb out of. For a moment, I saw him soften, the father who used to lift me on his shoulders, the one who once laughed when I begged for cotton candy at the fair. But that memory wasn't for me anymore. It was buried under years of silence, and silence doesn't forgive. "Mariah," he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. "What do you want from us?" I tilted my head, studying him. "Want? I don't want. I have." He blinked. "Have what?" "The proof, the power, and my peace." The words settled in the room like dust after an explosion. Her daughter shifted closer to me, timid but curious. "Why? Why didn't you just forget it? Move on." I looked at her, really looked. She had no part in the lies, yet here she was, being asked to carry them. Her eyes were softer, searching. "Because forgetting is easy," I said quietly. "Remembering is survival." Her face flickered with something, understanding, maybe, or fear. My stepmother slammed the envelope onto the table, her control cracking. "You're enjoying this, watching us squirm. You always wanted to hurt me, didn't you? You're punishing him to punish me." Her words clawed through the air, but I stayed calm. "You punished yourself the day you lied about me. You punished him the day you made him choose. I'm just handing you the mirror." Dad flinched, his eyes darting between us. He reached for the papers again, flipping through as if a missing line might save him. His hand shook. He stopped at one page, lips moving silently, then spoke in a voice hoarse with disbelief. "She's right," he whispered. The words stunned her. She spun toward him, panic sharp in her voice. "Daniel, no. Don't you see what she's doing? Don't you see?" But he wasn't looking at her anymore. His eyes were fixed on me, watery, cracked with regret. 15 years, he said again, shaking his head. I let 15 years disappear because I believed. His voice broke. Silence filled in the rest. I leaned back in my chair, calm, my mother's cracked smile glinting from the frame beside me. For the first time in my life, my father looked small. The light outside had shifted. Evening crept through the blinds, stripes of orange cutting across the room, painting everything in fractured gold. My father sat slumped forward, elbows on his knees, staring at the deed as if it were a confession written in his own hand. My stepmother paced. Her heels clicked against the floor in sharp, frantic beats. We're not doing this. We're not letting her dictate to us. You're her father, Daniel. Tell her she can't force us into anything. But he didn't look up. You still wear that perfume. The words slipped out of me before I could stop them. My voice was calm, but my chest tightened. It wasn't a question about her scent. It was a reminder. A reminder of the night I left. The night the smell of her lies clung to my clothes as I slept on a bench. She froze, staring at me, fury searing through her painted smile. Enough, Dad said suddenly, louder than before. His voice shook, but his eyes were on her this time. Enough, Carol. I believed you once. I won't. I can't do it again. The girl, her daughter, watched wide-eyed. Something cracked in her too, I could see it. That moment you realize your mother is not a shield, but a storm. Carol's mask slipped. Her voice turned jagged, desperate. So you'll take her side after everything? After all these years, after I kept this family together, you'll let her? Family. I cut in softly. Family is who shows up. Family is who doesn't shut the door. The clock ticked again, cruel and steady. Dad rubbed his face with both hands, his shoulders sagging. Mariah, I don't know how to undo this. I can't fix 15 years. I felt a strange stillness in my chest. Not victory, not satisfaction, just the weight of truth, finally placed where it belonged. You can't undo it, I said. My voice wavered, but it didn't break. But you can stop pretending it didn't happen. Carol hissed. She's manipulating you, Daniel. Can't you see? The girl stepped forward, her voice trembling but steady enough to cut through. Mom, stop. Please. Carol spun toward her, stunned. But her daughter held her gaze, hands balled into fists. I sat in silence, letting it all collapse without lifting a finger. The envelope, the deed, the cracked photo frame, all of it lay between us. Objects heavy with meaning, heavier than their excuses. And for the first time, I realized revenge wasn't loud. Revenge was this, watching the truth unfold in silence, watching the lies turn on themselves. But it wasn't done yet. Not until they chose whether to sign or to walk away forever. The apartment felt like a courtroom now. No judge, no jury, just the evidence spread out between us. The envelope, the deed, the photo frame with its jagged scar across my mother's smile. My father's fingers hovered above the signature line, trembling. His eyes were bloodshot, the kind of red that comes when regret has nowhere else to go. Carol stood rigid beside him, fury radiating like heat. Daniel, don't you dare. Don't you dare give in to this farce. She's blackmailing you. She's poisoning you against me. I said nothing. I didn't need to. The documents spoke. My silence spoke. His hand dropped to his lap. He couldn't look at me, but he couldn't look at her either. I have to own what I did, he said finally, voice low. I abandoned my daughter. I let lies drive her away. And if this is the cost, he tapped the page with one finger, heavy, final. Then I'll pay it. Carol's breath hitched, sharp and ragged. She turned on him, voice breaking into pieces. You'll ruin us. Do you understand that? You'll give her everything and leave us with nothing. No, I said, leaning forward, steady. I'm not taking everything. Just what was owed. Just the silence you forced on me, turned into numbers you can't ignore. The girl, her daughter, looked between us all, her face pale. Then she whispered, almost to herself. All these years, she wasn't the liar, was she? Her words cracked something wide open. Carol flinched, as though struck. Dad looked at her daughter like he was seeing her for the first time. The cycle of betrayal spreading to another generation. Sign it, I said, voice calm, unshaken. The pen lay on the table, untouched until now. My father picked it up, his hand shaking so hard the nib scratched the paper. The sound was sharp, final, like a door slamming shut. He pressed his name onto the line, each letter a confession. When he slid the papers back across the table toward me, the air shifted. It was over, not the years, not the loss, but the question of who I was in their story. I wasn't the runaway. I wasn't the liar. I wasn't the forgotten girl with a trash bag. I was the woman sitting in her own home, holding the proof, watching them face the sentence they wrote for themselves. Carol's eyes glistened with rage, with something uglier than defeat. She leaned in, her whisper jagged, "You'll regret this." I met her gaze, unflinching. No, I already regretted everything once. Never again. The papers were mine now. The silence had spoken, but there was still one thing left to say. The pen still quivered on the table, its ink smudged where my father's hand had shaken. The papers lay signed, heavy with a weight that had nothing to do with words and everything to do with years. Carol's eyes were wild, searching for some escape, some way to claw back the power she once held over both of us. But the silence in the room was unmovable. It was the same silence she had gifted me at 16, standing by the door as my father told me to leave. Only now it belonged to me. Dad sat back, his shoulders collapsed inward, the fight gone. He looked at me as if he might say, "I'm sorry," but the words never came. Maybe he knew that 15 years late they wouldn't matter. Or maybe he finally understood that silence, too, was an answer. Her daughter, his stepdaughter, was the only one who spoke. Her voice was quiet, but it carried through every corner of the room. I didn't know. I didn't know what you did to her, and I don't want to be part of it. She glanced at me, her eyes steady. "I'm sorry." It wasn't hers to apologize for, but it was the first honest sentence I'd heard from that family in years. I gathered the papers back into the envelope, sliding it shut. The crack in my mother's photo glinted in the fading light, splitting her smile but not erasing it. For years, that fracture defined me. Now it felt like something else. Proof that what breaks can still be carried, even turned into strength. I stood. The sound of the chair legs scraping the floor made them both flinch. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. "You wanted this apartment," I said softly, looking at my father. "But you were never asking for a place. You were asking for me to stay silent again. That silence is over." Carol tried to speak, but the words caught in her throat. Her face was pale, her confidence gone. She reached for her daughter's hand, but the girl pulled away. For the first time, my father didn't defend her. He just lowered his head, the silence heavier than anything he could say. I opened the door. The evening air rushed in, cool, clean. "You should go," I said. "And when you walk out this door, understand something. You don't get to come back." They filed out slowly. My father lingered, eyes on the ground, but I didn't wait for him to speak. I closed the door behind them with the same soft finality I'd heard at 16. Only this time I was on the inside. I placed the envelope on the table, beside my mother's cracked photo. The room was still, but not empty. It was mine, completely mine, and for the first time, silence felt like peace.